Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Caitlin Giles McCormick here with the NJEDA. I want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about this program that we're offering and how you can get those pieces of information that you need in order to apply. This is officially the registering as a business and getting your tax clearance certificate. That's what we will be going over this evening. I'm going to shift things over to our Director of Child Care, Alex Himmel, to dive into the specifics of today's program. Alex?
Thank you, Caitlin. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. I am really pleased that we were able to organize this info session. This is such a critical part of the Child Care Facilities Improvement Program Phase 2. So again, really pleased that we can get this information to you, and we hope you will find it helpful. As Caitlin mentioned, please put all of your questions in the Q&A. A few housekeeping things here. As Caitlin mentioned, we're recording the session. It will be available. We've also put the Business Action Center's website here. Our key presenter tonight comes to us from the Business Action Center and is really the expert on registering your business and tax certificates. We've also included their phone number. These slides will also be posted on our website as a point of reference for you, and those will go up around the same time as the recording. And that's a little bit more about housekeeping. I just wanted to, before I turn it over to Dawn, make sure we go over some key criteria for all of the participants about who is eligible for this grant opportunity. A reminder that you must be a family child care home that's registered with the Department of Children and Families. If you are not registered with DCF, unfortunately, you are not eligible. You also need to offer full-time care. We're defining full-time care as offering care for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, and at least 10 months a year. And the final key criteria is that you must either currently enroll or have enrolled in the last 12 months prior to submitting your application at least one child who receives assistance from the Child Care Assistance Program. If you don't meet any of these key criteria, again, unfortunately, you will not be eligible. And please visit our website if you have any additional information about eligibility. We also want to remind everyone, and it's the reason that we're here today, is that at time of approval, the EDA must have obtained a tax clearance certificate from you in order to move you through the approval process. And to receive a tax clearance certificate, you have to be a registered business and have a New Jersey tax ID number. Dawn will talk all about that with you tonight. And the last piece that we want to stress here is that this process takes time. We are launching our program sometime during the summer, but we wanted to do these info sessions now so you could start working on obtaining your tax certificate, and so it won't delay the processing of your applications. So the best case scenario here is that you start this process tomorrow with all the information that you learned today, and by the time we open our applications, you've got your tax certificate in hand. And with that, I would like to hand it over to Don Newman from the Business Action Center to share all he knows about registering your business. So thank you so much, Don.
Thank you. So I'm Don Newman. I'm from the New Jersey Business Action Center. I manage the Office of Small Business Advocacy. So for those of you that may have seen last night's Spanish language version of this presentation, that was my assistant manager doing that. But I'll be doing today's presentation in English. If you can advance the slides, just so you know a little bit about who we are. You went too many there. There we go. One more. One slide. Okay, it looks like we filtered out some things, but that's okay. So the first step is to choose a business type. All right. So these are the traditional business types that the state of New Jersey offers. I can't give you legal advice, so I can't tell you which one to choose, but I will hint to you that the most popular way to register a business today, about 10 times more likely than any of the others, is a limited liability company or an LLC. So I'm going to make some assumptions that you're registering that way. Can you go to the next slide? But there we go. Okay. But I do want to give you a little bit of background on what they are. So what we call a non-legal entity, there's an extension of the ownership of an individual that owns a business. So you're doing business as yourself. And the non-legal entities are sole proprietorships and general partnerships. So they are an acceptable way to do business legally. However, you do want to make sure you understand that doing business as yourself means there's no legal separation between the business and you. So if the business incurs a liability, that liability belongs to you personally. You have unlimited personal liability is the way we express it, which means that you're going to be the one that gets sued. You're the one that's going to have to pay a hospital bill for a child that gets injured in your care. So be careful about choosing those options. Again, I'm bound not to give you legal advice because I'm not a lawyer, and if I was, I'm not your lawyer. But then you have legal entities. Legal entities do provide a level of liability protection from you. People always say to me, "Well, I have insurance. I'm going to have $50,000 worth of insurance." And if you get a liability that's covered by the insurance and it's $1 million, the first 50,000 will be paid by the insurance company. And guess who's on the hook for the rest of it? You are. So don't count on your insurance when it comes to liability exposure. And then, like I said, the most common way for businesses to get started right now are LLCs. So we'll move to the next slide. And by the way, legal entities have legal standing. That means they can sue, they can own property, they can get sued, they can open a bank account, and I don't want to get too into the weeds, but things like that, opening a bank account, those are important because you want to separate your business expenses and revenue from your personal expenses and income, because if you mix the two, they will pierce the corporate veil, is the legal term, and you will lose that liability protection. So you do want to make sure you're doing that right. And I can talk to you about, at some point I'm going to mention places you can go to get some help learning about that. All right. So if you're a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, like I say, not my recommended way to register. You do need to get a trade name certificate from your county clerks. It usually costs about $50, and it protects the business name that you're using against use within that county. So if you're Mary's Home Care, then that's the trade name. Even though your name might be in it. So just be careful. Anything other than your legal name has to be registered as a trade name. If you use your full legal name, then you don't need a trade name certificate. Legal entities, they're going to have to check the availability of the name they want to use. A legal entity cannot have the same name as another legal entity. So my recommendation is always check the availability before you start the process to make sure that that name is available. You do not need to reserve a name. If you reserve a name, the name will be blocked from use for 6 months. You, as the person that reserved it, can get access to it through some paper filings. you're better off just not reserving the name at all. Just go ahead and start the business, and you won't have to reserve the name because you're going to be registering it right, in a reasonable amount of time. So don't worry about, if you see stuff on there about reserving name, don't worry about it. Just make sure the name is available before you move forward. Your next slide. So the first, and in the name, there are some names that you may not use. Some you have to get special permission to use. Others you're just barred from using altogether. This is the list. You can't call yourself the Little League because that's trademarked. You can't call yourself, you can't use zip code in the name of your business because that's a trademark of the U.S. Postal Service. So there are some words that are barred. Others you would have to get special permission, like realtor or trust, those kinds of things. So next slide. All right. So the first step is to get an EIN number, an employer identification number. It comes from the IRS. There is no such thing as a New Jersey EIN number. An EIN number comes from the IRS, which is the federal government, and can be used anywhere in the country. So it becomes, it's federal, right? You are not absolutely required to get an EIN number if you have no employees, if you're a sole proprietorship, or you're a single member LLC. What I mean by a single member LLC is when you talk about the owners of an LLC, they're called members, just like the owners of a corporation are called stockholders. So that's just a terminology you'll hear. Don't get confused by that. We don't talk about owners of an LLC. We talk about members of an LLC. So if you're the only member of the LLC or you're a sole proprietor and you have no employees, you may operate under a Social Security number. This is not recommended for security reasons because as you do business where you have to provide your federal tax ID number, you don't want to give them your personal Social Security number. So get the EIN. It doesn't cost you anything. It's easy to do. Just get it. Even though legally you don't have to under those narrow circumstances. When you do that through going to the IRS, you can do it online. Doesn't take that very long, and you'll get it right away. You'll eventually get a document that is very important to have in your files. And I'm going to talk about 3 documents as we go through this that are very important to have in your files. And that is called an SS4 letter. That's the letter from the IRS that has your EIN on it. All right, so you want to save that letter in your files, and you want to maintain that EIN number just like you maintain your own Social Security number. So move forward, please. All right. So this piece of information is only true of the legal entities, not sole proprietorships or general partnerships. You will have to, when you register, when you form your business, you will have to designate a registered agent. Now, for this audience, that's not a big deal. You could probably serve as your own registered agent as long as you have a New Jersey address where someone can accept service of process. You can use your own address and serve as your own registered agent. What do I mean by service of process? Well, if legal papers have to be served on the LLC, you remember I talked about the fact that LLCs can be in a lawsuit, can be sued, can sue other people. So legal documents are not served on an individual, they're served on the LLC because the LLC has legal standing. Who do I serve if I need to hand deliver a legal document to the party of the lawsuit, which is the LLC? And the answer is the registered agent. So you can serve as your own registered agent. It is also possible that any other individual could serve for you. You could also hire a company to serve at a fee as your registered agent. So if there's some reason why you don't have an address that you can accept this service and process, then you may be able to hire someone to do that for you. So if you move forward, please. All right. Another thing you're going to need when you form your business is a North American Industrial Classification System code, NAICS code. Typically, I don't tell people what code to use because you know your business better than I do. But I did pull up a sample code, which sounds remarkably like the kinds of businesses you're going to probably be running, and that is childcare services and providers own home. That is actually a code And this is a code that is used throughout all of North America, not just the United States. So again, that would be the next code. Move up one, move next slide. Thank you. All right, so you're ready to form your legal entity. All right, and let's assume you're going to be an LLC. So you're going to go to this website. All right, what you're going to be applying for is a certificate of formation. All right, for a domestic legal entity, a domestic LLC. In the case I've been using as an example, like I said, you could choose something else, but like a corporation. But and if you already have a business out of state, and now you also want to do this at your home, then you could register a foreign LLC. Foreign just means the LLC or the corporation or whatever was formed in another state first and wants to be authorized to conduct business here. Okay? When you're done with this process, you're going to get a 10-digit entity ID number. Don't confuse that with your EIN number, your employer identification number. It's different. All right. And it's only 10 digits long, where your EIN number, like your social security number, is 9 digits. That's a very quick and easy way to figure out whether you've got the right number. It's what I do when I ask people for a number and they give it to me and it's only 9 digits. I immediately know that that's their EIN and not their entity ID. So anyway, you're going to get an entity ID number. Very important to keep that handy because you're going to need it. You're also going to get a copy of a certificate of formation, or like I mentioned, if you were a foreign entity, a certificate of authorization. That's the second document and number that I wanted you to make sure you keep track of, keep in a file, have access to, so that when you go to open a bank account or you go to make your application, you'll have all the documentation that you need to do that. Right? Now, again, general partnerships and sole proprietorships are not legal entities, so they're going to skip this step. You're not going to be required to do this. So next slide, please. Okay, so now there's a second step in this process, and that is registering that entity for tax purposes. Now, I saw in the chat, the Q&A rather, somebody said, well, I'm already registered and I have an EIN. And that's fine. However, I would recommend that everyone check and make sure they did this step. It is often that this is skipped, especially, and I don't want to throw them under the bus, but I'm going to, especially if you use a third-party agency rather, to do this for you. If you go to, and I'm going to use an example, and I'm not criticizing that business. I'm not criticizing, but if you go to LegalZoom and you say, I want to pay you to set up my LLC, they're going to set up your LLC, which is the formation. They're not going to do this. You didn't pay them to do this. This is a tax registration. So I run into all the time when people are trying to get a tax clearance certificate that they're not properly registered in this step. They skip this step. Yes, they form. And here's sort of the secret. If you've been paying taxes, the tax man is not going to send the money back to you and say, oh, you're not properly registered. We don't know what to do with that money. No, they're going to take the money. They're going to set up a temporary tax ID number for you so that they can accept the money and report it. But it doesn't make you registered. So you have to get registered so you can get a document called a business registration certificate. It's extremely important to have that and to make sure it's valid. Right? And I'll talk about when it becomes invalid in a second. So you want to, on that website that I sent you to, you'll notice there's a 2-step process. We're now talking about that second step. And you're going to complete the NJ reg. And this is, by the way, required for sole proprietorships and general partnerships as well, not just legal entities. This is required for everybody because everybody's got to pay taxes. And you're going to be issued a 12-digit state ID number. Now, it's going to look very, very similar to another number, and that's your EIN. Because all it is your EIN with what we call a location code added to the end. So you're going to get an EIN number. You're going to get a number that looks like your EIN. In fact, part of it will probably be redacted because they want to protect the EIN from misuse. But if you look at the last few numbers that are exposed, it'll be the last few numbers of your EIN. And then it'll have 3 numbers added to the end of it. That's your location code. And those 12 digits become your state tax ID. So it's important for you to keep that number handy as well as your business registration certificate. So next slide, please. So what am I telling you? So just to summarize, so you have an SS4 letter from the IRS that has your employer identification number on it. That's in your corporate file. You have a certificate of formation or a certificate of authorization, but for this team group, I'm sure it's a certificate of formation with a 10-digit entity ID number for the legal entities. And then you have your business registration certificate. And that's the 12-digit number, which is your state tax ID number, your EIN, with the 3-digit location code. I mentioned that the BRC can be invalidated. The easiest way to get invalidated is not filing your annual reports. Now, for the new companies that are registering now, you have a year to wait on that. You have a year to worry about annual reports. For those businesses that are already registered and already formed, make sure you've been filing your annual report. An annual report is an online form you have to fill out. It's $75. There's a fee of $75, and it just confirms and updates all of your corporate information. And it's due on the last day of the month in the month that you form the LLC. So if you go out there today and form an LLC on May 31st of 2025, your first annual report will be due. If you fail to file your annual report for 2 consecutive years, your business registration certificate, I'm going to start calling it BRC because we love acronyms, your BRC is going to get revoked. And then by the time you get it reinstated and pay all the back fees that you owe, you may end up missing out on the next round of grant programs or financing programs that you're looking for. So really is important to keep that up to date. So next slide. Okay. So how people always ask me, how long does this take? It can take, for someone that's not used to doing this, like an hour and a half. It really only takes that long. It doesn't take, it's not a big lift. The sole proprietorships and general partnerships have it worse because they have to actually go to the county clerk's office. And they may be able to do that online in some counties, but not all. So they have a couple of days to kind of go through this. But if you do this online and you're proficient with a computer, an hour and a half from now, you'll be done. I did it for a friend of mine who was setting up a nonprofit. We were done in about 45 minutes, but I know how to do it. I know the answers. I knew what to expect. So we did it very fast. So just take your time. I've given you some hints on some of the answers and like the next code and things like that. You don't have to look up. So, and just go ahead and go through it. Now, one thing I do want to tell you is that when you do this, it is effective immediately. However, it doesn't necessarily populate in all the online databases. So when you go to get your tax clearance, which I'm going to talk about in a few seconds, when you go to get your tax clearance, if you try to do what you need to do 1 hour after you completed this registration process, it will fail. You'll be told that your business information doesn't match our records. That's because the databases haven't been fully updated. You should wait 1 to 2 business days to do that, to kind of get into that, start getting into that database. All right, next slide. Okay. I did not know that one of the requirements is that you have to be registered. So I had put this slide in, but obviously if you're not registered, you don't qualify for this grant program. But family childcare homes can voluntarily register with the state so that you can take advantage of the childcare resource and referral centers. However, what Alex mentioned before, which I was not, frankly, I didn't make the connections. that this requirement is going to be required for the grant program. Alex, unless I'm saying something out of school there, you can correct me. But that's the link for getting registered. All right. So again, it's a good thing to do, especially if you don't have a full complement of children. You know, you can only have 5 or fewer children at your home, but if you only have 2 that you're taking care of, by being part of this referral service, you can actually get referrals from parents to a child care center that's registered with them. So you might be able to grow your business to the full 5 students that are 5 children rather you're caring for. Next slide. Yeah, okay. So before I get into all of my contact information, I'm going to talk a little bit about how do I get a tax clearance certificate. All right. So unfortunately, I didn't have slides for this, but I'm going to drop in something on the chat, and I want everyone to take a moment to open that link, and then put a bookmark in. So here's how you get a tax clearance certificate. You get a tax clearance certificate by inside of a system called Premier Business Services, or PBS, Premier Business Services. So getting into Premier Business Services is not getting a tax clearance certificate, but you have to request a tax clearance certificate by being in Premier Business Services. So it's not just tax clearances. It's going to give you access to a whole variety of information about your business. You can do your tax filings through it. You can review past tax filings. It's really a nice tool. However, because it's giving access to your tax information to the private, to anyone that signs up for it, it's very difficult to get through the process of signing up for PBS. For security reasons, you have to know a lot about your business in order to sign up. So what I sent to you in the chat is a link to a screen of videos. Now, about 1 minute before this program started, I was going to send you a link to a video on Premier Business Services. However, I changed my mind at the last second, and I just sent you to a link of 7 different videos. The 6th one in that list is for Premier Business Services. Why did I send you the others? And I'll on a little bit of an aside, say, because there's some of them that might be of interest to you, like how to register a business, which is what we just went through. There's a video in there about how to get certified as a woman-owned business, minority-owned business, small business, LGBTQ business, veteran business, or service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. You may, because there's no cost involved in that, you may decide to get that certification. No cost, easy to get, do it online, and you can advertise your company, your business, as if you qualify for these designations, as a woman-owned business or a minority-owned business or whatever. So I've sent you a link that has 7 different videos on it, but the one that we're going to focus on today is Premier Business Services. So you sign up for Premier Business Services, and again, watch the video. It's a little complicated to get it to do it, but you're going to sign up for Premier Business Services. Now you have an account for Premier Business Services. Now you have to associate that account to your business. The system doesn't, when you log in and create a PBS account, and again, I'm going to start using the acronym PBS. Once I have a PBS account, it needs to know what business you're interested in. So you're going to have to add your business to that account. And that's where things start getting complicated. Listen to the instructions carefully. Follow the instructions. read the instructions on the pages that you get to, and I'll tell you a couple of sort of quick things. First of all, your business name has to be exactly as it appears on your business registration certificate. So that's one of the reasons why that document is so important. If your company is called, Acme and Burroughs Home Care LLC, but you refer to yourself as A and B Home Care, and you put in A and B Home Care into the PBS system to try to add your business, it's going to fail. Why? Because your name isn't A and B rather. It's whatever I said. So it has to match exactly. There's a list of criteria they asked you for, and right in the middle of that is the word or, O-R, not A-N-D, not N. This information or this information. If you put in all the information in both places, it will fail because it only asks you for either this or that. You're going to be asked for a PIN. You may or may not get a PIN by the time you go to do this. PINs are sent out by the Division of Taxation to help you pay your taxes. But you don't need a PIN. Why don't you need a PIN? Because the PIN is asked on one section, and then there's an or and the rest of it. So I know I'm being a little bit pedantic, but the fact is, read the screen, and when you see words like or and, make sure you are following what that information means. So now you've gone through this process and you go to add your business. So there's a couple of things that can happen. You may get a message that someone has already added a business to the PBS account. That could be your accountant. The biggest culprits are payroll companies, but I doubt family home care centers are using payroll companies to pay their employees if you have employees. But if you run into that problem, come to us on the live chat and we'll tell you how to correct that. Because only one only one account holder can associate to your business. Anyone else would have to get delegated authority from that prime account holder. And it's not easy to get rid of it. So you want to come to me, we'll help you with that. We'll tell you how to get it cleared so that you can get access. Then the other issue you might have is when now you've added your business and you go to, there's going to be a section in there called the Tax and Revenue Center. And you're going to click on that. You're going to open that up. That gives you access to all your tax information. And if you scroll down far enough, you'll see a button there for Business Incentive Tax Clearance Certificate. For some of you, it will be as easy as clicking that button, choosing who's going to get the tax clearance, in this case, the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. And it will generate automatically a tax clearance certificate that you can download, a PDF, and then send to the EDA. And it could be that simple. However, it's not going to be that simple for many of you. And here's why. It's not a big deal. It's not a disaster. There's no anxiety. I always tell people, when you're doing this, just relax. I know why you're getting the messages you're getting. You may get a message that says, we can't determine your tax, your eligibility for a tax clearance at this time. That will happen for newly registered businesses. So if you do go to get a tax clearance certificate, you're properly registered, you've been able to add your business, there's nobody else that has added their business to your account, to their account rather, everything is good, you think you're right in, you're in the home stretch, you click it and you get that message. Not a big deal. What happened is this: you're recently registered. The AI, the automated system that is looking at your tax records to determine whether you're eligible for a tax clearance, is going to get confused when it doesn't see any taxes that you've paid. You haven't paid any taxes because you just registered last week, or at least 2 days ago, because again, you wouldn't have been able to add the business unless you did it at least 2 days prior. So it doesn't know what to do. So it kicks back that response, and the response you're going to get is going to include an email address and the information they want you to provide in that email to get your tax clearance. send the email, follow the instructions, and in 2 to 5 business days, they will, a human being, a person will review it and either issue a tax clearance or tell you why you can't get one. One obvious way to not be able to get one is if there was a problem with your registration. But since you all are going to follow my instructions that I just gave you, you're not going to have that problem. You're all going to be properly registered. But if you do get that message, they'll tell you what the issue is. The very unlikely response you're going to get, all the times I've been doing this and helping people with this, I very rarely have a problem where people are behind in their taxes. I actually have a tax deficiency. Doesn't happen often, has happened. Then if that's the situation, you're going to have to pay those taxes before you can get a tax clearance certificate. Or at the very least, be in a payment plan that you have been diligently adhering to for a little while before you can get a tax clearance. So that's the worst case scenario. I don't think you're going to run into that. I think most of you are going to run into the problem of such an early registration that they need to intercede. And it'll take you 2 to 5 business days. Now, Alex talked about doing this process early as possible. I agree. However, tax clearance certificates don't technically expire, but they are not evergreen. Why? Because you could have been tax compliant today and 6 months from now not be. So there is going to be a limit on how old that tax clearance certificate can be prior to the EDA wanting to accept it. And Alex, do you know offhand what that is?
So if it's older than 180 days, the EDA won't accept it and will ask people to rerun their tax certificates for us.
Yeah. Let me tell you something. That's very generous. 180 days. That's very generous. So, you can go ahead and do this. And by the way, when you do it my way with the PBS system, not my way, it's the only. There are ways you can do it if you can't use PBS, but it doesn't cost you anything. So you can always, if you have to update it eventually before the grant agreement is executed, it shouldn't be difficult to update because now you're already in PBS and you can go back in and get another tax clearance certificate. So I wouldn't worry too much about getting it too early, but go through and get it as soon as you can. All right. So I do want to talk about where you can go to get a question answered. Alex mentioned it up front, but you can go to the Business Action Center website. We do have a lot of information on that site, though I do encourage you to visit it. You can access the live chat from that site. You can also go to the business.nja.gov site and access a live chat. What do we mean by a live chat? Little icon in there, you click it, you can ask your question. People from my office will pick up that chat and answer your question for you. Or if it's really about the program over at the EDA, we can actually take that live chat and transfer it to an EDA representative, and they will answer you right in that live chat. The EDA also has a live chat available on their website. If your question is about taxation, maybe in the unlikely event you do have a tax question, we can transfer your conversation to somebody from the taxation unit to answer that question. They are on all the time. They may take a little while to get you a response, but they will reach out. They won't give you they won't share confidential information on the chat. So they are happy to have you give them a phone number and they will call you. So you don't have to sit on the hold. But when you call taxation, normally you could sit on hold for an hour. You won't have to do that. They will call you when they're ready to answer your question. We can also direct you, and again, this is more an unlikely thing with the kinds of childcare centers you have, but if you have an employee question, employer accounts over in the Department of Labor are also on the chat. So we can take that chat, transfer it to them so that they can talk to you about any Department of Labor employer accounts questions. That means there are a lot of different divisions within the Department of Labor that they can answer questions for, but So you may be better off calling the Department of Labor directly for those questions. But for anything that involves employer accounts, meaning the withholding accounts that you have for your employees, we can do that through the live chat as well. You can also go old school and call us at 1-800-Jersey-7. You also have my personal contact information there, my phone number and my email address. I'm happy to help people. Not always available. We'll be going on vacation, for example, for the next few days. But more importantly, I do a lot of speaking events and are out in the community. So I'm not always immediately available. So you can always leave messages or send emails. I will get back to you as soon as possible. I think I have one more slide. Nope. Okay, you guys do. They did a little editing, so I had another slide with just to tell you that we consider ourselves problem solvers. So you come to us when you have a challenge, you have a problem, you have a need, anything that's involving your business. Reach out to us either through the live chat or the phone number or calling me. We'll try to figure out a way to help you. One of the things I mentioned earlier that I want to repeat is everything that I've talked about today, as well as better managing of your business. You are business owners, and I talked a little bit about this with Alex earlier, and I'm going to say it again. You may have started out as the neighborhood babysitter, helping out a few kids, but you're now at the point where you're no longer the neighborhood babysitter who took a few bucks from your neighbors to watch their kids during the day. You're now an entrepreneur. And so you're no longer a hobbyist, you're an entrepreneur. And there are things that entrepreneurs need to know. And there is we can help you learn those things and get some technical assistance and training and so on. And we do that primarily through an organization called the Small Business Development Centers. We help fund them, and they also get funding from the Small Business Administration. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you can reach out to me, or you can just go to their website, which is NJSBDC, so that's Small Business Development Center, SBDC.com, and take a look at their site and request counseling. There's other organizations like SCORE, the UCEDC, there's other the Women's Business Centers. So there are other places where you can go to get help learning about the proper way to manage a business, right? How to write a business plan, and sort of working what we say on your business as opposed to in your business. In your business is taking care of the kids. On your business is taking care of managing a business, being an entrepreneur. If you have an interest in learning more about that, reach out to me or go directly to the SBDC. We can talk to you about those kinds of resources. All right. So that's all I have. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah, Don, let me read you some from the chat, because I think there's some really good ones in here. So there's a couple questions about if someone has an EIN, does that mean they're registered already?
No. So as I explained before about EINs, they come from the IRS. The IRS does not create businesses. The states do. All the IRS does is you claim you're a business. Well, here's a number that business can use. But they didn't create the business. You have to go to a state to do that. In this case, of course, New Jersey. So that's a big misunderstanding a lot of people have. No, absolutely, you do not have a business. All you have is a an employer identification number from the IRS. So you did the first step. Hopefully the name that you gave the IRS for your business is still available, and you can and you still have to go through the registration process with the state, and you'll get its state tax ID number. And like I mentioned before, quick way to figure that out, count the numbers. If it's only 9 digits, you only got it from the IRS. If you got it from the state, it would be 12 digits long. There's definitely a difference in the length of these numbers. So the simple answer is no, you're not properly registered.
And without the proper registration, you can't get your tax certificate.
That's correct. Nor can you qualify for the program. Or
Exactly.
you can't get registered as a woman minority owned business, like I mentioned before. You can't do that if you're not properly registered. You're not legally operating in the state of New Jersey. That's the bottom line. So you do want to make sure you get those registrations in place.
Okay, there's another question about, does the name associated with my EIN have to match the name when I register?
Yes. And I don't want to get too into the woods, into the weeds rather, but you have the legal name of your business should be consistent with your EIN, with the state, with your business registration certificate. You're gonna have the same name across all of that. Why? Because again, we're talking about a legal entity. May not be so true with the sole proprietorship or general partnership, but it is for the legal entities. That's the legal name of the business. So it means something. However, there is a thing called an alternate name. Some people incorrectly call that a DBA. It is not a DBA. Under New Jersey law, it means something different. DBA means doing business as. You could register an alternate name. That is not the legal name of your business, but it gives you permission to use a different name. The most common example I give to that, I could have a company called Ocean Food and Beverage LLC, and then register an alternate name, which would be Anthony's Pizza. Anthony's Pizza, I can operate under that name, but it is not the legal name of the business. The legal name of the business is Ocean Food and Beverage LLC. So on legal documents, that's what it would say. On your tax records and your EIN and all that, that's what it would say. On the sign outside your building, Anthony's Pizza is fine, because you've told the state that you're going to operate using that fictitious name or alternate names. So names are important, especially with the legal entities. It's like saying, my name is Donald Newman. Would it be okay if I go by Joe Smith when I go get my driver's license? No, not my legal name. Same thing with your business. It has to be the legal name. Everything should be consistent.
Let's see. There's a question about the $75 fee that you spoke about. Can you talk about what that $75 is for again?
Sure, that's for an annual report. I mention it because it can affect your BRC if you've already in existence, because I saw on the Q&A that some people said that they already have an LLC established. If you already have something established and you even registered it properly, so you got your BRC, but you haven't been filing your annual report, that BRC could be revoked or suspended. That happens when you don't file your annual report for 2 consecutive years. So next year, if you file today, you register today, on the 31st of May in 2025, you'll have an annual report due. You do it online. It's a very simple form. Just basically updates your information. Make sure you still have the same registered agent. Make sure your address hasn't changed and the ownership hasn't changed. And if everything is the same, you pay your $75 and you're done. And that is going to keep your BRC active. It's going to keep you out of trouble. What can happen if you don't do it is after that second year, your BRC is going to get revoked and you won't be able to qualify for the EDA grant, and you won't be able to get registered as a woman-owned business, and you won't be able to do any of that because you're not properly registered anymore, because your BRC has been revoked. And to get it back, you're going to have to pay each of the $75 fees that you missed, plus a reinstatement. So, we had someone call our call center today and was very upset when she found out she hadn't filed her annual report in 5 years. She needed it taken care of. She's now going to have to pay $75 times 5, plus a reinstatement fee, which I believe is about $90. And if you've been revoked for more than a certain period of time, they end up doing an audit because they have to generate a tax clearance certificate internally, it's a different kind of tax clearance certificate than you're applying for, but a tax clearance certificate, so that the Division of Revenue will reinstate your business. Taxation has to create it and give it to the other division so that they'll reinstate your business. So that can end up taking a lot of time. You don't want to get into the trap of not filing your annual reports, because it's easy to do. You can continue to operate, but eventually it will catch up to you. And then fixing the problem becomes much more complicated and expensive than just paying the $75 a year it is that it costs to get it, keep it up to date.
Great. There's a question about whether you have to pay for a tax clearance certificate.
No, that's the beauty of this new system. They used to charge you for a tax clearance certificate, but by using the PBS system, they've eliminated the fee. So no fee for this. Just click on the button. When you do form your business, by the way, if you do form an LLC, that is going to cost you $125. That is a $125 fee. When you register for taxes, there's no fee, just the formation piece. If you already created an LLC, you don't have to pay that. If you already have a corporation, if you go with this sole proprietorship or the general partnership, you still have to pay the $50 for the trade name certificate, and you have to you're going to not have any liability protection. So to save the $25, it's not worth it. If that's, again, you can decide to be a sole proprietorship if you want, but if you're making that decision based on the $25 savings, that's a big mistake. You might have legitimate reasons why you want to operate that way. Talk to your attorney, your accountant. I'd be surprised if any of them advise you to do it that way, but I'm not a lawyer, and nor am I an accountant. But don't make those decisions based on the fees. All right, so it's $125. Actually, well, it would be more than $25 for the registration, but you don't have to do this annual reports. That's where I was getting the 75 as a sole proprietorship or a general partnership, but it's not worth the money. It's not worth saving the money. Yeah, set up the LLC, pay the annual fees, and $125 for the registration fee.
I'm seeing a lot of really good questions that are very specific to people's businesses. And I think what I would recommend here is that you take Don up on his offer to contact him or to contact the Business Action Center with your very specific questions, and have them answered, and make sure that you're feeling comfortable and confident with sort of knowing what your next steps are. We will be taking these questions and updating our frequently asked questions document. So we'll put all the answers in there as another place where you all can find information, and we will let you know when those have been updated. And I want to thank Don so much for all of his time and the work that he's done with us, and for tonight and answering everyone's questions. I encourage everyone, take advantage of the resources that are the Business Action Center to answer all of your questions, and do that soon and new. So you're not feeling stressed out and doing them at the last minute, worried about when the application is going to be released. So thank you all.
You don't mind, I have
Please.
two things I want to say to you. First of all, if you're getting stressed out over this paperwork, go to the SBDC. They will help you do this. They will help you fill out this paper. And I also saw somebody in the chat ask about, can I change my name if I already got my EIN? If you haven't done anything else, if you just got the EIN, my recommendation is don't change the name. Just open and get another EIN number under the correct name. It's easier than changing the name. And as long as you tell the IRS that the other EIN is no longer being used, that'll be the end of it. But that's the easiest way to do it. Just get another EIN with the correct name and then go through the state process. Now, if you've already started the state process, that's a different story. Reach out to me, we'll talk about that.
Thank you.
I-
Sorry, we're talking about childcare and here's my
Mom?
daughter in the black background. No, just a moment. Let me just finish my meeting.
Hi.
Again, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to Dawn. Please enjoy the rest of your evening. Use the Business Action Center to, ask the questions that you have. Please use the EDA customer care number, to ask questions that you have about the program. Thank you so much. Good luck and have a lovely evening.